Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Wu, and I will be presenting towards the workplace of the future, how organizations can facilitate digital work, an article from 2019 by Sven Ditz, Schapper Richter, Alexander Richter, and Stefan Smolik. The article starts off with the workplace of the future focuses on how and what work is done, not where and when it is done. And immediately it gives the reader a different perspective of the traditional work environment. With that said, I felt the main concept was that digital work can help provide more autonomy and flexibility to employees, but it must be disseminated through proper channels and activities in order to be successful. The article defines digital work as work practices that are reconfigured via new IT. This is a key term used multiple times in the article as the authors explore how organization can transform the way they work to leverage IT. The article was written with themes revolving around work design frameworks and change management, which are topics for this week's class. Some of the key attributes studied in IT change management include the way work is done, how work is communicated, how decisions are made, and how employees collaborate, all of which will be further discussed later in this presentation. The authors started off by investigating how three organizations from different business sectors established digital work. This allowed them to compare the different approaches taken and results they yielded for each organization. From there, they identified four major management challenges that they consider organizations need to overcome in order to introduce digital work effectively. And finally, they identified lessons learned and derived 8 recommendations for organizations to facilitate digital work. So let's take a look at how they approach their study. After selecting the organizations, each of their profiles were detailed, such as organizational structures, number of employees, and corporate culture. Next, they identified the corporate vision that motivated the company to promote digital work. Based on these motivational drivers, an IT solution was determined. The implementation was explored to see the various dissemination channels used to get the employees' buy-in, as well as how they're supported in a sustainable manner. Lastly, an impact analysis was performed to track and evaluate the success of the new IT. Now here are the 3 organizations discussed in the case. Alliance is a global leader in insurance and asset management with 150,000 employees and serves 76 million customers worldwide. It also has a hierarchical structure. The City Administration of Lenzburg is a government organization with 140 employees. It is responsible for city infrastructure and citizen demands, and has a traditional working and corporate culture as well. Hof Umantis is an emerging tech company that develops HR and talent management solutions. The company has 150 employees and has a flat organizational structure. The next 3 slides cover the full empirical approach that each organization took to incorporate new IT. Starting with Alliance, the company was motivated to improve organizational knowledge management, strengthen communication, increase work flexibility, and to become an attractive employer. The company first introduced remote work to increase work flexibility and redesigned their physical office space to improve team collaboration. But the company's defining step into digital work was introducing Alliance Connect, which is an internal application where employees can access and share knowledge. This platform also enabled employees to gather in self-organized digital communities that promote knowledge exchange. The application gained enough traction that the company decided to develop a mobile app version to make it accessible from anywhere around the world. Considering Alliance has a hierarchical structure with a vast network of departments, the company went with a gradual rollout to suit the different groups. This was accompanied with training programs and communication campaigns to keep their workforce up to date with the rollout. The social media app was also led by their Chief Operating Officer, the COO, who would post daily and offer Q&A sessions to interact with the employees. The success of this top-down approach generated more than 6,000 digital communities, which has contributed to shaping a new corporate culture. Employees were able to find information, solutions, and other experts within the organization easier than before. Awareness of current events improved as more and more groups would share their success stories around the company. This had a significant impact on the company because employees began to adopt a more team-oriented work style. The second organization that was covered was the City Administration of Lenzburg. The main reason and motivation for this government organization to enable digital work was to reduce employees' daily commute to work, especially for their mobility-impaired employees. The solution to this was, of course, introduce telecommuting, working from home. They began their digital mission by providing mobile devices, VPN, and remote access so that employees can access work files at home. Furthermore, the City Administration of Lenzburg took this step further by scanning all previous paperwork so that they can be accessed from any location. But providing technology was only half of their success story. The organization formulated official directives and guidelines to help ease employees to the new transition. This was the right approach for the government organization because of the way the company was structured, as well as the prevailing work culture that was more familiar with rules and regulations. This was further supplemented with a top-down rollout strategy by relying on upper management to encourage the use of new technologies. In the end, the strategy proved successful because employees benefited from the improved work flexibility and saved them from daily expenses such as time and transportation. From the organization's perspective, implementing new IT and remote work was also cost-effective because it helped reduce rental and utility costs. The last organization we'll cover is Health Umantis, who is looking to pursue digital work to re-establish company identity. The emerging tech company wanted to accomplish this by improving work flexibility, employee collaboration, and corporate transparency. The company accomplished this mission by introducing telecommuting and transitioning towards collaborative software tools such as Jira and Confluence. With this, the employees were able to develop an internal social media app where employees would post photos and events during their workdays. This was backed by their CEO, who would use and interact with employees regularly, thus creating more transparency in the company. Unlike the other two scenarios, Health Umantis relied on their dev team to disseminate new technologies within the organization. They accomplished the same goal by giving the employees the responsibilities to achieve digital work. This had a significant positive impact to the software company because it helped foster creativity and innovation, which in turn strengthened employee loyalty. Now, it seemed that remote work was a common solution for all the cases that we covered, and for good reasons because the flexibility it offers generally increases productivity. But there are also disadvantages such as digital fatigue, stress, and being disconnected from coworkers. So now we'll cover the challenges that the groups faced when implementing digital work. When introducing new IT, some may feel overwhelmed because of the way it will change their work habits and way of doing things. Without proper support, some will fail to adopt or even refuse to change. Others may feel burnout for working longer hours, which some of us can relate to with work from home setup. Digital natives and digital immigrants. Organizations need to consider that not everyone is willing to accept new technologies and would rather stick to old habits. Sometimes they are willing, but the process is not simple enough for them to adapt. One thing is for sure, companies should not overlook older generations when implementing digital work because they often have indispensable knowledge and experience. Culture and leadership paradigm. Organizations need to consider company culture and leadership paradigm when planning digital work dissemination. For example, the bottom-up strategy for how Fumantis would unlikely succeed in a hierarchical environment like Alliance. Top management. It is important that management is willing to play both roles as pioneers to lead by example and also as apprentices to learn how to use the new tools and technologies. Otherwise, they will likely develop and showcase undesirable behaviors. For example, the misuse of internal social media. As I mentioned earlier, the article derived 8 recommendations to implement digital work successfully. But for the sake of this presentation, I picked the top 4 for what I felt are the most important takeaways from their research. The first step is to develop a clear vision of digital work, and then choose the right IT accordingly. A company needs to have a clear understanding of why they need this change in order to develop an appropriate solution for it. The second step is to develop an open and collaborative organizational culture. This includes a rollout plan that ensures suitability with the corresponding work culture. The third step is to ease employees into digital work and involve them in the introduction process. This will help convince employees of the digital work benefits and gain maximum buy-in. And lastly, to regularly review the use and impact of digital work. Companies need to be aware that implementing digital work is a long-term process, and the best way to ensure success is to continuously monitor and adjust accordingly. This article shares many relations with our class. Although not exactly the same, the 8 recommendations suggested by the authors are similar to that of the Kotter's 8-step process of change management. We also discussed the drivers of digital work, the advantages and disadvantages of remote work, then managing the challenges, and lastly gaining the acceptance of IT-induced change. My final thoughts to leave with you is that digital work is not achieved by only choosing the right IT solution, because there must be a shift in company culture, structure, and way of thinking. At the same time, companies need to consider how to implement digital work to ensure maximum employee buy-in. Here are the references for the case. And now that concludes my presentation, so I will now be taking questions. Thank you very much.